Christina's conscious, synergetic thought process presents Planet Utopia, episode 121622, The Quest for a True Democracy Continues. Imagine that our cohort intention agrees to design Planet Utopia's most economical governing system. From our earthly experiences of democracy, which is a republic, does not measure closely enough to our highest ideals. This is primarily because of repetitive conflicts with itself, disappointing the people who take sides, perpetuating mindless biases against each other and the system itself. The quest for a true democracy continues. We can always reflect on our individual experience of democracy during the best of times, especially as we are assured it is better than other forms of government. Those gradations, from extreme socialism to communism, temporarily manifesting tyrannical governing systems that culminate into excruciating war. War is the W factor of the PRJWBCHM politics, religion, justice, war, belief complex, hierarchical matrix. So we could assume war is an inevitable eventuality within the complicated contextual parameter of any governing system's economics. But of course, such assumption must never be factored into designing Planet Utopia's true democracy. Therefore, as we start anew again today, we must ask, why does the system cohere, if at all? What is its structure? Is the system an ill-conceived structure that requires constant local patching and mending? Synergetic 790.11. Fortunately for our 21st to 22nd century consciously considerate humanity, designing Planet Utopia's true democracy is not under any election cycles time constraints. There is no designated time frame within which our astutely intuitive inspirations compose thought and language as shown here. Mostly self is educating its inherently innate potential consciousness evolution concerning what it takes to form a more perfect union, starting with universe, comprising finite, eternally regenerating structural system integrity patterning without need to force the issue. What if we project phases of Planet Utopia's true democracy as a 22nd century objective starting 77 years earlier at this year's end, approaching 2023 as the anticipatory phase? There are various forms of democracy, governing systems in the world, each with its version, emulations of how the U.S. government is organized. Yet the people who inhabit planet Earth's continents and nations do the best with what they are working out. And so identifying any democracy as a quasi-democracy or a pseudo-democracy seems presumptuous. Yet those of us who have heard of quasi-democracies are alerted to consider such possibilities. We wonder why a true democracy never seems to get off the ground, because in fact it does not exist in our world, but is imaginably anticipatory. So choosing not to follow established emulations from globally situate, variously named democracies, let's not force any issue, and instead learn what the three branches of the federal government are as the reason to assure no individual or group will have too much power. Right off, we can see the adapted to vagaries in the quantity of power, as too much, suggesting too little power, may not be worth considering. Is that too little power exactly opposite of too much power? Does this indefiniteness relegate the supposedly insignificant, worthless voice, sloughing it off as unworthy of the integral value that is expected of all the people, by the people, for the people, as their integral input of respected value? This question can be further explored as we continue now focusing on the three branches, which one would expect comes from the main stem. Is it a bifurcation, a type of branching, forking, ramification? Is it dichotomous, divided or dividing into two sharply distinguished parts or classifications? From where do these three branches derive? Which could be another extensively questioning, self-discovering thesis. The three branches inadvertently take sides, generating and regenerating enmity states. The divisions culminate into increasing populations of public enemies, prison populations, petty criminals, to extremely cruel and heartless crimes that cultivate a predaceous species of non-humans that treat humans as disposable entities. Is this correlative to an active and not yet active type of slave mentality conditioning? In any event, the three branches of government are listed here explicitly. Legislative makes laws, in parentheses, Congress, comprising the House of Representatives and Senate. Executive carries out laws, in parentheses, President, Vice President, Cabinet, most federal agencies. Judicial evaluates laws, in parentheses, Supreme Court and other courts. Each branch of government can change acts of the other branches. Oh, with a surprising twist, we are informed that each branch of government can change acts of the other branches. An act is an abbreviation of the word action or actions, suggesting the power of transformation, suggesting verbing. But what system's power, or whose power, is it? Conceptually, are these three branches infinitely extending into obliviousness, or a triangle, a closed system with equally measured edges? We have recently learned that angle and edge is one of the always and only coexisting complementarities. Or do the three branches closely resemble the courts of kings as hierarchical derivations in hopes of maintaining highest positioned power of authority? But is this perniciously always, without consciously factoring in the knowledge that power goes with the line of supply? What line is it? That supplies never-ending conflicting values. What line is referential to the control line of nature, the diagonal of the cube, and or a prime vector? Surely, environmental controls must be of integral concern to a true democracy, as we must also know something of an information control system and the omni-rational control matrix. At a glance, there is an infinitude of implicit conflicts in a rudderless ship of state. Could a true democracy versus quasi-democracies evidence any correlation to these synergetic inquiries? I mean, specifically respecting all three branches that from general systems thinking points of view ought to have been labeled as three vertexes interrelating points. Of course, the variously constructed democracies in the world have yet to incorporate conscious knowledge of omnitopological systems, which, in turn, requires a fourth vertex to evidence inside-outing, intertransformation, interaccommodation as six interrelating vectors, lines, or edges, conceptualities of universe. Awareness as such, complexity, is simplified throughout the continuity of conscious life, referential to the minimum structural system of universe which our 21st century humanity is beginning to comprehend, initiated in the 20th century to cogently involve our individual explorations in the geometry of thinking and the tetrahedron. These truths are not self-evident. We have to learn of the coordinate systems of universe before integrating the knowledge as integral, self-discoverable evidence. Obviously, a true democracy would be differently organized, with integral, intertransforming, interaccommodating, eternal patterning integrities of universe and not of the world's PRJWBCHM, which emanates from the womb of permitted ignorance. Here we can see the value of a cosmic hierarchy, an operational field complex, which closer associates the geodesic lines and importing energy from the stars. Yes, it is older, previous to these most recent times, associated with a higher eternal intelligence than any human struggle to escape the intolerable myopias of tyrannical forms of governing, especially as gatekeepers of the ill-conceived necessity to perpetuate punishing as the highest power that controls prison keys, locking in, locking out, and all such word associations that render the human beings as a slave of such slave mentality conditioning, including the inherited detriments carried over from generation to generation. By the way, let's recall again today that the 8 U's of planet Utopia are rememberable. U for universe, U for utopia, U for unique, U for unity, U for unifying, U for ubiquitous, U for understanding, U for us. Ubiquitously understanding us, humans of the eternal omniscient mind, a highly intelligent evolving human mammalian species, designing systems for survival on planet Utopia. Until next time, I continue anticipating our healthy, happy coexistence on Earth and on planet Utopia. Reference: Synergetic 790.11, How the U.S. Government is Organized. Contact planetutopia60@gmail.com. Thank you.